Hello, School Transportation Nation. Tony Corpin here with Ryan Gray and Taylor Ekbatani coming fresh off of STN EXPO Indianapolis. We had a great time. The shrimp cocktails were spicy at the St. Elmo. If you guys haven't eaten there, it is quite a treat. Opens up the sinuses. What'd you think, Ryan?
Absolutely.
You like that?
Yeah, I loved it. I had been battling some allergies heading out east, and boy, we went to dinner that first night we got there, Tony, and I was good after that.
Opens you right up, doesn't it?
I was good.
Taylor, how about your dining escapades? You made it around to the usual spots as well?
Oh, yeah. I feel like every year you go back to St. Elmo's and you forget just how hard that horseradish hits. But man, it got me good. I was actually talking to a local Uber driver, and he said that they had ketchup to it because it's too spicy for even the locals.
Wow. Yeah. That fresh horseradish that they cut every day, it's something to remember by, that's for sure. We're going to miss Indianapolis because we're headed to Charlotte in 2025, guys. If you didn't know, STN EXPO East is making its new home in a suburb of Charlotte called Concord. That's going to be March 20th through the 25th, 2025. So look out for more details on that. We got lots happening. Also, not to forget, this episode brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing, and by School Radio, your source for reliable radio communications. All right, guys, before we dive into more chat with Taylor and Ryan, I've got a quick message from our sponsor. Hey, guys. Are reliable radio communications in your school buses important to you? The laws against using cell phones while operating commercial vehicles are in place for the safety and security of both your drivers and your students. Taking that risk comes with a hefty fine, penalties, and even disqualification of the driver's CDL. School Radio specializes in providing wide area, push-to-talk, two-way radio solutions for schools and school transportation that are fully compliant with all hands-free operation laws. They offer a managed service program that includes the device, all services, all maintenance at a fixed monthly budget point. No expensive infrastructure or FCC license is required. Get a demo today by visiting school-radio.com. That's school-radio.com. So to kick off the conference, we started with the Bus Technology Summit. We had 6 companies present technology solutions, kind of the market makers that are out there. We did some routing, we did video, some GPS, tablet technologies, routing optimization, really important things to many school districts. So I think it's good to get more of a hands-on experience with the products. I walked into Zonar's session. They had their tablets. They were demonstrating how to use the product. Very interesting. I bobbed my head into the TransFinder session. They were talking a little bit more about how to use the software to create stops, things that would come up. And the audience was about 25 people in the audience in each little subgroup. And it really was the right size to have kind of a nice, cohesive discussion with the audience about what were the technology challenges they were faced with. And the manufacturers were there to kind of address questions, answer those. And I thought it was very, very good. I know you got some comments on the podcast last week, Taylor. You did a great job, by the way. A few of the attendees brought up how much they enjoyed those sessions.
Yeah, I was talking to Christy Hartzell on the podcast last week, and she mentioned how helpful it was going to those BTS sessions because it was a really hands-on. I felt like it was really personal too, because you mentioned it was 25 people. So attendees felt comfortable asking questions and getting a little more into the nitty-gritty into what the technology actually does. And I felt like it was really successful. To be honest, I wasn't sure what to expect, even though, I'm on the staff. But when I went into the sessions, I was like, this was perfect. It was great.
Wonderful. Yeah. And then we also, the next day we transitioned, we also had a maintenance training. Ryan was spearheading a lot of the inspector training that we were doing. I know we were going over to Brownsburg, Ryan, for a little hands-on. Bobby Williams from Cypress Fairbanks down in Houston was leading that conversation with about 25 technicians or so. And he does his usual dog and pony show with the inspector training, which, there's a lot of classroom classroom stuff with that, Ryan. And people looking at electric school bus now. How does that play into the actual inspection for maintenance professionals?
Absolutely. So this year, as we've mentioned before, we were working with Clean Cities and Communities, the Long Beach, California division, I guess, out here in California. And basically, what is happening out here in California is there is free training for all school districts, available for all school districts anyways, on electric school buses. It's a program funded by the California Energy Commission, and under the Clean Cities and Communities umbrella, Janet Malig, who runs this program out of Cerritos College down here in Southern California. It's basically been available through all of the community colleges here in California. She was able to come out with her associate, Lawson Malika, and they were able to provide kind of a component overview of what's different between a traditional ICE school bus and an electric school bus, basically letting people get their feet wet, ask questions, no actual work on these buses. But certainly we appreciate Midwest Transit and IC Bus for making that electric bus available to us out at Brownsburg, and to Nick Meyer-Rose and his staff at Brownsburg Community School Corporation. It's about half an hour northwest of downtown Indianapolis. Great hosts, wonderful facility. Going to miss working with those guys. But it was really interesting. It was actually about Tony, it was about 18 technicians that were there, actually 17 technicians and a representative from the World Resources Institute's Electric School Bus Initiative that were out there. We also had a test that they took the day before. They were in 8 hours of classroom learning, going through the manual. And at the conclusion of the Saturday event, everybody headed back to the Indiana Convention Center for an overview of the new ASE high voltage accreditation program for school buses that was presented by Derek Bryant. And then following that, we had a panel discussion on workforce development that was spearheaded by Stephanie Lee of the World Resources Institute. And we had a couple of rural school district representatives, a maintenance professional, Doug Francis, formerly of Gaylord Public Schools in Michigan, Michigan Association of Pupil Transportation Board, and then from Williamsfield School District in rural Illinois outside of Peoria, Superintendent Tim Farquhar. So really interesting kind of, holistic approach to looking at school bus inspection and indoctrinating the electric standpoint and what that means to maintenance staff and transportation staff in general.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Kyle Hiley. He was one of the technicians in the training. He was a garage star last year, so he was able to come to the conference and get maiden conference attendee taken care of. So it was great to see him out there. I was talking to him, and he said it was interesting hearing from the different states, what they're doing. I think he made some friends in Arkansas that were in the training. So really a well-rounded approach and kind of seeing what everyone's doing and taking that information back to his district, which is Metropolitan School District of Wabash County in Indiana. So great chatting with him. Shout out to him. I just reached out to all the garage stars for this year. So excited to see those in the August issue.
Yeah, we had the technicians from Iowa to New York there, so it was a good time overall. And it's coming to Reno here. We're about a month out. We're going to have that offering in Reno, hosted by Washoe County Schools, like last year, and going to have a little bit bigger group. And we're going to have a propane school bus there as part of the inspection, along with diesel. And we're going to have electric school bus that's actually owned by Washoe County that's going to be there. And Janet will again be spearheading that electric overview. We're going to have Derek Bryant back to provide the ASE overview of the high voltage accreditation program. So, if you haven't signed up for the class, there's still time.
Yeah, I know we have a few spaces. Last year it was bursting at the seams, so
Oh, yeah.
there's not many seats left, but enough that if you want to jump in on it, it'd definitely be worth sending some of your maintenance professionals. If you guys are looking towards electric school buses or propane, this is a must-have in your bag to have this training. It is, Ryan, I had never heard of the ASC training. That's brand new, right?
Yeah, we wrote about it earlier this year. We did an article on that accreditation program, and there's actually two tiers to it. There's kind of the tier one or the level one, which is for anyone in transportation, drivers, supervisors, directors, just in general familiarity with high voltage electric school buses. And then there's a deeper dive for those who eventually will be hands-on. And I understand there's a third level as well that for folks that are actually going to be working with the high voltage systems and not simply doing the maintenance on these vehicles. So it's this, again, a holistic approach to safety that ASE is providing everyone. I understand that it could be an additional S series accreditation. So ASE currently provides S1 through 7. And if you get all those 7 tiers done, then you become a master school bus technician. I believe that they're looking to add 2, if not 3 more to that. And, that equates in a lot of districts to more money for these technicians. And in terms of the workforce development, we've talked, Tony and Taylor, over and over again about how electric school buses could increase the professionalism of school bus maintenance in particular. And when in a time when there's a school bus technician shortage that's every bit as bad as the school bus driver shortage, attracting and retaining those technicians is paramount. And now that the industry is really moving toward electric school buses, it's an opportunity to lure some younger workers who are coming out of college or trade school, and they're mechanically minded and they're looking at their options. And there's a lot of technology out there right now, and school buses are rolling computers. Gone are the days when you just go out there and you get all greasy and you're turning a wrench all day. There is some of that, and there's going to continue to be a lot of the components that need to be serviced, brakes and tires and whatnot. Air conditioning is a big one. And you had mentioned some of the electric systems already in play with school buses, but now with that high voltage, it really gives a runway to folks who want to make a career in school bus maintenance.
Yeah, Ryan, it's good you bring it up because green energy strategy was one of my questions that I had posed at the Transportation Directors Summit that we opened with as well on Friday. I usually lead that discussion, and we had a packed house of transportation directors and vendor partners for that event there at the Omni Resort, and it was really great. And, I take the survey data that we break down and ask a lot of questions within that survey about our audience, right? So who was represented? It was about 80% school district fleet, about 11% contracted. And then you get a blend of about 10% was a combination of in-house and contracted. So it's really interesting to see who goes. And then of those directors, it was interesting because I asked the question, did your school district or company plan to apply for the EPA Clean School Bus Program? Only 16 said yes. 28 said no, and 11 said maybe. I thought that was interesting, right? I expected the yeses to be higher, maybe because we were more in the central part of the state where we don't see as many electric school buses. I thought we had a pretty good mix of Eastern Seaboard school districts on board and contractors, but definitely in Indiana, I think that we see that more, Ryan. Isn't that correct? There's very few electric school buses in the state.
Yeah, there's only a handful. I want to say, less than a dozen, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But certainly when you get into the Midwest, down south, that's diesel country, and speaking of Nick Meyer-Rose out at Brownsburg, and he told me this last year when we were out there, he has no plans to do anything but diesel. And this is amid the clean school bus program. We're seeing mandates in New York. California has its mandate that 8 other states are following. Indiana's not one of them. So a lot of student transporters in these non-carb states, these states that don't have these memorandum of understanding or some kind of either mandate or recommendation to go zero emissions, they're saying, hey, what's the point? I'm not being pushed to do it, at least yet. So a lot of these folks, they might be thinking in the back of their heads, but they're not admitting to having any proclivity to adding electric school buses or necessarily any plans to.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Other things we talked about at the Director Summit, I posed the question as well, what are your current challenges you're trying to solve and leverage technology solutions? And the number one answer, driver retention, recruitment. Number 2 was student behavior, bullying, and assault. Number 3 was improved driver safety and performance. Number 4, transportation routing and optimization. And number 5 was operational efficiency. So, when I was redoing my slides, not surprising, those were all the top 5. They kind of shuffled around a little bit from 1 to 5, but all the same 5 core challenges remained from last year. I thought that was interesting.
And those first 2 that you mentioned, that's right in the wheelhouse of both electric and propane benefits that those fuels or energies offer. So it's interesting too, in light of folks not going after the clean school bus funds. And granted, there are some stipulations to those funds that I think dissuade some folks. And certainly if you are already on the propane kick, that is a lot closer in parity with diesel. But as as was confirmed at Expo, talking about propane, something that we've been talking about for a while now, Cummins confirmed that there will be no propane. We've been talking for a couple years now, since early 2022, when they announced their new agnostic engine, both on the heavy duty and on the medium duty side. And from medium duty, the plan all along was octane or gasoline, propane. They would have diesel in there, and then also hydrogen. Well, they told the whole crowd there. You were there, Tony, Taylor, so were you. You heard the words. They are not going with propane. They made a business decision that essentially with the diesel emissions regulations that the EPA is pushing, they seem to be a bit bullish on diesel and meeting some of those requirements. And then there is an interesting comment made about hydrogen as well. So folks that have been thinking that maybe hydrogen is not going to be a play for school buses, well, maybe that'll change. Again, we're looking years down the road, but Cummins is certainly investigating that. So, all in all, I know that disappointed a lot of people. I was talking with a couple of transportation directors who are big propane fleet operators, and they were purchasing either a Thomas-built bus or an icy bus, and now it's confirmed the only game in town is Bluebird. So, in fact, one of them that I was talking to just made their first orders for Bluebird. So, certainly things are changing in the industry, and it was good to get that clarity.
And also to that point, in that kind of open forum, I had asked a question specifically about the drivetrain axle, because we've seen that technology, which was presented at the ACT Expo a few years ago, and we hadn't necessarily seen it in commercially available yet. And then at the Cummins event last year, when we toured the CEC, their basically Center for Electric Center or whatever they call it, that they have their acronyms there at Cummins. And that drivetrain, Axel, they were talking about where to position the engine components, how would that work? But it is a significant reduction in weight. There are enormous benefits. And I think that is probably the next iteration of electric drivetrain. And we heard at ACT Expo something to that effect as well. So Cummins didn't say when. I know you pressed them to ask what was their prognostication when we would see that be commercially available. And, they said 3 to 5 years, if I'm not mistaken, right, Ryan?
Yes. And then, so you're talking about the Meritor Blue Horizon. Cummins bought Meritor last year. One of their mini acquisitions, so they already were a behemoth in medium and heavy duty truck, but now really becoming huge. And you're right. During that Cummins factory tours on the final day, that's when all this took place. We split up and went to various plants. I went to actually the Cummins engine plant, where they make the X15. And they also have the Accelera. So we looked at the battery packs and some of their drivetrains, again, that are being developed. And then afterwards we had lunch, and that's when we had this open forum, and it was pretty neat to be able to sit there. We had a room of, I don't know, however many people that were in the room, but it was pretty filled, and being able to have Cummins up there, and just, we were able to ask questions, and they said what they could. They dodged a couple of them. I also asked about LFP batteries, so the lithium iron phosphate, which several of the school bus OEMs have moved to. The Cummins offering continues to be lithium ion. So that's where we have more concerns with the thermal runaways that LFP doesn't. And they did mention that they're looking at LFP, and that's in development as well. And
soon, he said soon.
I asked him, I asked him, well, when? And he said soon. So, read into that what you will. But definitely that's another trend that we've seen is moving to LFP, because that battery, those battery cells and battery packs are more stable. They don't run as hot. You don't have that thermal runaway, as I mentioned. And when we're talking about, driving students around, safety is always at the forefront of the conversations. And that's really what's driving that adoption.
Great thoughts, guys. Let's take a quick break. Do you remember a time when you could just cherry pick the best solution to run your school transportation operation? The best routing software may be one company. The best parent app could be another company. Those days are over. TransFinder said the old way of doing business doesn't work for today's busy and burdened school transportation departments. They need one partner, one solution. TransFinder has embraced this approach for years now, building award-winning solutions like Route Finder Plus, the driver app Wayfinder, parent app Stop Finder, and inventory management solution Service Finder. They also have field trip management solutions, Trip Finder, and Viewfinder, which provide critical routing information to other stakeholders in the district. Add to this TransFinder's award-winning hardware and industry's best support and service. You have the ingredients that make up one partner, one solution. It's not just a slogan. It's TransFinder's way of doing business. Learn more by emailing getplus@transfinder.com or calling 800-373-3609. That's 800-373-3609. Remember, one partner, one solution.
Yeah, Tony and I went to the other facility that we were able to tour, the Cummins Technical Center, and we went into the cave, another Cummins acronym. Unfortunately, it wasn't like a boulder kind of structure in a mountain, right? But we went into the cave, and they have this maintenance technology that's now available that some of the other transportation directors in the room with us were definitely eyeing. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, Tony. You might know it.
Yeah, they were using VR headsets basically and testing different ones to be able to look at a vehicle and diagnose it and then make auditory notes. So instead of having it's like a hands-free solution, right? But it would bring up what was going on. It would be able to do like a virtual reality. So, is a little bit like, hey, is this available for school districts to use? And it was like, sorta. We were looking at really advanced stuff, and they were saying a lot of the Cummins technical service centers around the country are using this, but I'm not sure it was commercially available for garages yet. But it sounds like it's something they're working on, to have a program to actually look at something through it's almost like a AI assistance technology, but a visual assistance technology to identify issues that you might be looking at and you don't know what it is, or how do you troubleshoot it. They were also using it for training as well, which we both thought was interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned it, AI. We had a couple sessions on AI, and we're that term's being thrown out a lot right now. We're seeing a lot of products come to market, and it's AI in asterisks or in small print enabled. So that's the software. I had a panel on that conversation. Geotab actually hosted another AI discussion during the Green Bus Summit. And, it's really intriguing to see the possibilities of where we can go with that. We're years, maybe decades away from full machine learning, where the machines kind of take over, but someone's still programming this stuff. And, from a maintenance standpoint, that's where we can really get more toward predictive maintenance rather than the traditional preventive or, PM schedules that school districts, live and breathe by. So, that ability to marry these technologies, this VR diagnostics tool training, coupled with the AI, where it is pulling data. There's software companies like Uptake that was part of the Geotab session. There's another one called Intangible. And actually that's going to be a session in Reno. And there's these different AI companies that have years of data from dozens and dozens and dozens of vehicle and engine manufacturers, and they're able to cull all this data, and it's giving them, the ability to analyze where trouble and problems arise with different components and engines and whatnot. So it's becoming like this vast database that is really pushing out toward to garages, and we're seeing a little bit of this in truck. And I know it's again soon, quote unquote, when this could be available for school districts, certainly at a cost. But being able to pull all this information, pull together reports automatically, so you don't have to go out there and go digging. Certainly, not using paper files anymore. So we had a pretty robust conversation around that on my panel, and then, like I mentioned, in Green Bus Summit, we discussed that again. So it's interesting and cool to see where things could be going in terms of AI and maintenance and virtual reality. Certainly an exciting time, and it comes back to that workforce development too. I mean, these are things that, regardless if it's electric school buses or not, the school bus industry is just becoming more and more technologically mature, and that's going to mean good things in terms of labor force, hopefully.
Yeah, it's interesting, Ryan. I think as the conference progressed, we're kind of jumping around a little bit, but the star of the show, Wayne Lee, who was our keynote speaker and also our Transportation Directors Summit leader, and Wayne brought with him a special skill set of hypnotism. And you think about it, hypnotism, do people actually get hypnotized? Man, it was impressive to see that a lot of people were open to suggestion. They were open to relax and commit to the process. And visually, it is amazing to see how he was able to really unlock some of the things happening inside of people, removing fear, removing mental blocks. There was one gentleman we gave it as an example, Marcus from NG. He was our vendor partner there on Saturday at Topgolf. And Marcus is there. He's under hypnosis at the time. And Wayne basically says, Marcus, do you like to dance? He's like, yeah, but when no one's looking, like by myself, right? And he's under this hypnotic state. And he said, okay, well, when you hear this music, you're going to start dancing. And he's like, no. And then he plays the music and Marcus gets up and he's the most amazing dancer you've ever seen. The guy was amazing. Everybody in the room was clapping. As soon as the music stopped, he walked back to his chair as if nothing, he knew he even danced. And he said, Marcus, did you just dance? He said, nope. And he played the music again. Bang, there goes Marcus again, dancing away. And at the end of it, you kind of have this moment that, wow, Marcus was this amazing dancer, but because of the fear that he didn't want to show off his skills or his abilities out of that way, it was really it hit home for a lot of people that a lot of people are scared to kind of put themselves out there, make that chance. There's a mental block too to allow your team to succeed. So I thought the message was really strong. And we saw Dr. Kane Smith down from Cypress Fairbanks. He even walked away and kind of gave his feeling at the end, how districts and district professionals should walk away and really reflect on themselves personally. How are they, committing to this kind of experience and allowing their staff to succeed and giving that the ability to do that. So I was very excited to have Wayne and really see what he could do. But yeah, Taylor, you were there. What did you think?
Yeah, and I was actually talking to Kane. So on Monday, Wayne was back for a keynote presentation, and he asked for more volunteers, and Kane volunteered to go up on stage, and he was actually sent back because he, couldn't relax enough under that to get into that hypnosis state. But I was talking to Kane afterwards, and he was like, this is kind of a good reminder for transportation directors to take a minute in your busy days and try to find 5, 6, whatever it is, minutes to relax, to breathe, because, he's sitting there. He said his watch was going off. He was getting emails and he couldn't focus on just relaxing because of all the constant distractions. And I think that's kind of a testament to transportation directors, is that they don't really take a minute in the day to kind of reflect and breathe, essentially. So I thought that was really important, and it was great for him to share that.
Yeah, I totally agree, Taylor. That was kind of the big takeaway as well, is everybody's so busy. He was like, look, it's about breathing. And hypnosis isn't magic. He said it's simply going into a very relaxed state and being open to suggestion, being present in that moment. And so he talked a lot about being in kind of a more meditative state and allowing yourself that time and it being very therapeutic to your mood, well-being, performance. So he really took kind of an entertainment style keynote and put a really great message on it and an exclamation point. Attendees were absolutely raving about Wayne Lee, so highly recommend him to anybody out there. But really a great keynote and someone to lead the conversation, entertain, amaze, and drop a great message.
And he's a former teacher too, so he that definitely came across. So I could tell that he really had a good time meeting everybody. He was at our trade show, walking around, introducing himself, talking with folks. And when I interviewed him on the podcast earlier this year, we talked about what you both you and Taylor, Tony are talking about with power suggestion. Some of the people think, oh, this is hokey. Is this really happening? And Wayne told me himself, because I've done it one time, and it's not like the movies where I think that there's some playmanship going on and some entertainment as well. And yeah, I can't speak for everybody, but in my own experience, I wasn't out of it. And, you wake up and you have no recollection and it was like a dream but you're right. It just, you're open to, I don't even use like the word suggestion. It's just, you're open to the possibilities. Because suggestion sometimes has a negative connotation, and a couple of people actually made that comment to me, like, "Well, I don't want to be open to suggestion. What are they going to make me do?" or things like that. Like it's like the boogeyman taking over their mind. But it's really being able to, like you said, relax and open yourself up to the possibilities, and be able to be open to other ideas, things that you are afraid of or that you have never done before, so you don't want to go there. But it enables you to open your mind and really embrace other viewpoints, other perspectives, and a lot of times, again, unlock your deepest desires in terms of things that you want to do professionally or personally that have always been a stumbling block for you, or there's always a barrier. They're like, oh, I can't do that, or you're letting people tell you, oh, you can't do that, but you can. And it's about listening to yourself and what you really want and opening yourself up to actually do it.
Wayne gave us a couple of acronyms to kind of walk away with, and I was taking notes, and one of them was WIN, W-I-N, what if now? That was one of them. And the other one was ACE, activate, clear, and elevate, right? So this is a state of mind, kind of what you're referring to, Ryan. And he asked me, hey, Tony, what is that like pinnacle, that thing you want? And I was like, I would love STN EXPO to have 1,000 attendees. So he's like, all right, we need to tell more people about that. How do we get that word out? How do we get more people to embrace all the great content that's being created by our team, all these stakeholders in school transportation? How do we get them to the show to partake of this great message, this great training? And it's for everybody, right? So I think with STN Expo Reno coming up as well out in the West, we are really excited to offer this to a big attendance. And that's probably the closest we could get, right? We get about 800 attendees, not including our vendor partners. And that is, I think, very attainable. It's just getting the word out to you guys in the nation to spread the word, let everybody know about all the great things that we're doing at STN Expo. We got Green Bus Summit as well. We had all these great green technology partners talk a lot about the trends in energy, if it was propane, electric, technology, where Brian mentioned earlier, Geotab talked a little bit about technology and how that plays into it. So it's very interesting to see all the stakeholders that are driving the conversation. And STN Expo and our TSD conference are a forum to bring all these people together to elevate our industry, elevate the conversation. So I'm really excited for what we're doing and all the hard work Ryan and Taylor and the team are putting forward. And we really hope you guys can join us this summer. STN Expo is July 12th through the 17th. You still have time to register. I believe our cutoff is June 21st for general registration. We got lots to offer. But tons there. But Ryan, kind of just tying a bow on it. Any other big highlights, takeaways, things you'd recommend you saw in Indy, or maybe you'd recommend for someone to check out in Reno?
Our final session of the conference was provided by Max Christensen, formerly the director of transportation at the Iowa Department of Education. He retired recently, now works for First Light Safety Products. And he was out there to talk about the January 4th Perry High School and Middle School shooting. He lives in Perry, Iowa. His wife is the middle school band director. His oldest daughter, Olivia, was a junior at the time. She recently they recently ended school. She's now an upcoming senior. His son Isaiah, I believe, was a freshman. So they were there when this all happened. One of the many senseless school shootings. It was a tragedy. One student was killed, as was the high school principal, who Max said he had known for 25 years and was a friend of there in the local town. Max is the former director of transportation for Perry School District, and also sits on the school board. So that really hit home for him, and it was an emotional session there to wrap up the expo before we headed out to the ride and drive, and of course had Cummins the following day. But it was a stark reminder of the importance that transportation plays. The buses were right there on scene to evacuate the kids and get them to the reunification center. But it was, he had some harrowing recollections of that day and what he was doing when he got that call. Dad, we have an active shooter. That was the name of his presentation. His daughter Olivia called him, and can you imagine just the fear that runs through any parent's heart and mind when they hear those words? We hope we never do, but as Max demonstrated for us, certainly it can happen anywhere, anytime. So it's, again, that reminder amid all of this technology discussions and state of the art innovations, that ultimately at the end of the day it comes back to safety, and that's how we bookended the conference. We started off with safety. The first part of Saturday, after the bus technology labs, we had a half day, essentially seminar, a presentation by Dick Fisher, who is one of the foremost industry trainers. He is the father of School Bus Safety Week. We've written about him and that whole story when he successfully petitioned President Nixon in the early 70s to form that week, long celebration for the first time, and it's lived on. He talked about the safety that goes into training the drivers. First and foremost, technology plays a huge role, but it comes down to training, first of all, for the drivers. And then he had a panel discussion following that. So we really, like I said, bookended the conference on that safety note, and really reminding folks why we are all here, and that's for the kids.
Taylor, any last thoughts on your end?
Honestly, I think Ryan said it well. The conference started and ended with safety, and everyone at the conference really held true to that mantra the entire time. So I think Ryan summed it up perfectly. But it was a great conference, and I'm looking forward to our upcoming one in Reno.
Wonderful. Well, guys, I want to thank you both for being here. The wonderful Taylor Ekbatani and Mr. Ryan Gray. Appreciate your thoughts, insights from the conference. Guys, don't forget, you can check out our July issue in a few weeks. We'll have lots of insights and coverage from the conference, as well as we'll be announcing our Innovator of the Year award. So who's it going to be? Guys, got to check out that July issue to find out. I want a special thanks to our sponsors. That's TransFinder and School Radio. Don't forget, guys, visit stnonline.com for all the news and analysis on the school transportation industry, and sign up today for STN EXPO in Reno at stnexpo.com/west. Deadline is June 21st, so don't wait any longer. Make sure and get your hotel room as well, because that deadline's, I think, cutting off on the 17th of June. So don't wait. You need a room if you come to Reno. And don't forget, you can always subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to Pods Nation. Make sure to share it within your community. Get the word out, all the good things we're doing. We'd love to see you at STN Expo this summer. Nation, we love you. We'll see you next week.